שבת אחים גם יחד. Join me, הנה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Bruchim Havaim. Welcome to a very special Shabbat in which we are honored and delighted to be celebrating Shabbat and singing and praying with Happy Hoffman, whom I first met in Poland on the March of the Living, where she accompanies that very solemn and sacred journey of thousands of pilgrims who go to commemorate the victims of the Shoah as they walk from Auschwitz to Birkenau for hours, and this meditative, magical, and deeply soulful music that we all heard was coming from Happy's heart and from her voice and from her soul. But Happy is also a renowned artist in her own right. She has been a cantorial soloist in Memphis, and recently her band was featured on the main stage at Austin City Limits. So after Shabbat, you could go on Spotify and just search Happy, Happie, and you will find her own secular music. See, we already have a big fan who is excited to do that, but we're delighted to have you. We're honored, and we hope that this is the first of several opportunities for us to pray together. I want to invite all of you to rise in body or spirit as we are going to say the blessing over the Shabbat candles, which were lit previously at the right time. And then we'll begin our Kabbalat Shabbat service either from the blue Siddur that you have or from the transliterated pamphlet that you may have picked up on your way into the sanctuary. We'll cover our eyes in concentration of the oneness of God and the sanctity of this moment. Let's say together the blessings over the Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We turn to the person next to us. We wish them a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of peace. You may be seated in the middle of page 2 if you're following the pamphlets, or on page 12 in our prayer books. We find this beautiful medieval poem that speaks about our relationship with God and compares it to the relationship that we have with the person we love. Yedid Nefesh Av Arachaman, middle of page 2 or page 12. Beloved of my soul, O merciful God, lead me, your servant, closer to you in favor.
Yedid Nefesh
Series of psalms that prepare us for Shabbat, that lift our spirits, elevate our souls. Psalm 95, L'chu Neranana l'Adonai. Let's sing songs together to God and rejoice in our Creator. You can find this psalm in our Siddur on page 22 and our pamphlets, bottom of page 2.
L'chu Neranana, yai rai 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 rai, l'Adonai, yai rai 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 rai, Nariya, yai rai 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 rai, Litzor Yishenu, yai rai 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 rai. Join me, L'chu Neranana, L'chu Neranana, yai rai 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 rai, l'Adonai, yai rai 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 rai, Nariya, yai rai 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 rai, Litzor Yishenu, yai rai 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 rai, Nekadma v'anad v'toda v'toda, B'zmirot nariya lo, nariya lo, L'chu Neranana, yai rai 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 rai, l'Adonai, yai rai 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 rai, Nariya, yai rai 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 rai, Litzor Yishenu, yai rai 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 rai, yai rai 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 rai.
The heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad on the top of page 3 in the pamphlet, or bottom of page 24 in our prayer books. Ismechu Hashamayim.
Yismechu, yismechu, Hashamayim. Yismechu, yismechu, Hashamayim. V'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam umlo. Yismechu, yismechu, Hashamayim. Yismechu, yismechu, Hashamayim. V'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam umlo. Yismechu, yismechu, Hashamayim. Yismechu, yismechu, Hashamayim. Hashamayim.
bottom of page 26 in our Sidurim, Or Zarua Latzadik, light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright in heart. This is taken from Psalm 97.
Or Zarua Latzadik, Ul Yisrael Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik, Ul Yisrael Simcha. Simchu tzadikim ba'Adonai, ba'Adonai, ve'hodu lezecher kodsho, lezecher kodsho. Or Zarua Latzadik, Ul Yisrael Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik, Ul Yisrael Simcha.
Page 28 in our prayer books, or middle of page 3 in the pamphlets. Beautiful psalm that speaks about our ability to connect with God through musical instruments. This is the moment in which we welcome and we acknowledge how much Happy is contributing to our inspiration as we try to connect with the source of everything that is her guitar, her voice, Rabbi Berkun, and all of our voices. Help each other to connect with God. Sing praises to the Lord with the harp, voices of song, trumpets, and the shofar. Zamru Adonai bechinor, b'kol zimra.
Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor ve'kol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor ve'kol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor ve'kol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor ve'kol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor ve'kol zimra. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor,
were all together once upon a time at Mount Sinai, the psalm that references how wonderful it is to worship together at God's holy mountain. Bottom of page 3 in our pamphlets, taken from Psalm 99, Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, or at the bottom of page 30 in our Sidurim.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו.
We rise as we turn to page 34 in our prayer books, or page 4 in the pamphlets for Mizmor LeDavid.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai b'Levi, Avul Adonai kavod ba'oz, Avul Adonai kivod shemo, Ishtachavu Adonai behadra kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod hirim, Adonai hamayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et hazeh avanon, Vayarkidem kemo egel, Lebanon וסריון כמו ומימים. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכול ליד סוף יערות, ובהיכלו כולו אומר כבוד, כולו אומר, כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני למה בו ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. את עמו, את Be seated. One of the things that I find amusing and also inspiring is that here we are, more than halfway into the secular month of January, and we are still wishing each other Happy New Year. Anybody wish someone a Happy New Year today? You probably did, right? I don't know how long that lasts. I'm assuming it's over by at least March, but maybe it will carry all the way through February. But in the Jewish tradition, we have a similar yet opposite custom of beginning to wish people a Shabbat Shalom, not only on Friday, but for some, even on Thursday. And maybe if you're speaking to someone on Wednesday that you know you won't see, you may then even say it. And our tradition invites us actually throughout the whole week to start anticipating this day of rest and holiness and peace and joy and love. And in the liturgical experience when we pray, because we welcome Shabbat in lots of ways. Some is just when the sun sets, some is when we light candles, but also when we come to shul. And when we pray and we sing this next poem, we greet Shabbat. We welcome Shabbat officially into this night, into our lives, into our hearts, and into this beautiful space that we are so privileged to be able to be in together, to share with friends and Jews from around the country, from around the world. We're all engaged in similar spiritual work, but all who look towards Shabbat no matter what day of the week it is. So Lecha Dodi, let's join together in this beautiful melody that has become a fixture here. We're grateful that Happy will lead us in it as well. In our prayer books, page 38 and 40. In our pamphlets, page 5, Lecha Dodi.
Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad ishmianu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shemo tiferet v'litilah Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki Kol habracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maseh b'machshavat tchila lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela yamin u'smol tifrotzi ve'et Adonai ta'itzi Yadish ben parzi v'nismecha v'nagila Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela
We rise, turn and face the entrance.
B'nei Shabbat nekabela
Bow together as we welcome Shabbat.
Boi שלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה. תוך אמונה עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת
You may be seated. As we welcomed Shabbat, the Queen, we also entered Shabbat. Entering Shabbat is entering a different world. For the next 25 hours, problems will not disappear, but we will choose to focus on the blessings. 25 hours in which we're not going to demand, we're not going to supplicate, we're not going to beg. We're going to express our gratitude. Because as we look around, we are surrounded by miracles, by blessings. The fact that we are here this evening, some of us with the people we love, and some of us eager to meet people that we will love soon. Today is a day to be grateful, and that's why as we enter Shabbat, we take a deep breath. We feel how our soul is expanded. And we offer in gratitude the words that King David composed in honor of this holy day. It is good to thank you, God, and sing to your name most high. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון. Bottom of page 5.
טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות לאדוני, ולהגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, ואמונתך בלילות. טוב להודות לאדוני, ולהגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, אמונתך בלילות. טוב להודות לאדוני.
Final verses of that psalm for Shabbat conclude, Tzadik Tamar Yifrach, the righteous will flourish like the palm tree, grow mighty like the cedar of Lebanon. You can find it in our pamphlets on the top of page 6 or in our Sidurim, bottom of page 42.
Sadikata Maifa Ke'eres Bavanon Iskan Shetulim Beveit Adonai Bechatzot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvun Teseva Desheni Deranonim Iyu Lehagi Ki Ashar Adonai Tzuri Velo Avlata Bo.
Final psalm of the Kabbalat Shabbat service can be found on page 6 in our pamphlets, page 44 in our prayer books. This is Psalm 93. Adonai malach geut lavesh
Lavesh Adonai Yosita Zara Aftikon Tevele Alatimot Aftikon Tevele Alatimot
nachon kisacha me'az me'olam
Anseu Nearot Adonai
nasu nerot olam isu dorot och yam mikolot mayim rabim adirim mishvereyam adir b'marom Adonai adir b'marom Adonai edotecha nenu me'od
לביתך נבחנו בודש אדוני לאורך ימים אדוני לאורך ימים
מקולות מים רבים אדירים משפרי ים אדיר במרום אדוני אדיר במרום
Rise as we transition to the Mariv section of our service, the actual beginning of our evening prayers with the call to worship Baruch Hu on page 50 if you're following the prayer books, or middle of page 6 in the pamphlets.
Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai
be seated. Continue privately the blessings before the Shema. Page 50 in our Siddur. אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבי. Final blessing before the Shema speaks of God's love for us, the gift of the Torah and the path of the mitzvot. This particular melody, if you want the insight to some of these new melodies that Happy has introduced us to and inspired us with, you have to come talk to her during Shabbat dinner. But this next melody, I first heard, I think it was during COVID, and it was performed and recorded by a couple of Jewish brothers, I think 3 or 4 of them. Is it 4? It's 3. And one of them went to the same summer camp that I went to and that Rabbi Guido's kids go to. He's a former Ramah Nick. His name is Ben Platt. He, of course, made it on Broadway, but what helped make it on Broadway for him was that he went to Camp Ramah. This is a melody that he recorded with his brothers for Ahavat Olam. Maybe it was before, but I first heard it during COVID. It gave me a lot of inspiration and a lot of hope. And this is going to carry us right into the Shema. Page 52.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת.
יעבדך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו Yisrael. As we all say Amen. Our bat mitzvah for this weekend, Julia, is not only celebrating becoming a bat mitzvah tonight and tomorrow, but today, on this secular day of the 13th of January, 2 days after my birthday, is her actual 13th birthday. We will wish her a Yom Huledet Sameach during dinner, but now she's going to lead us in the affirmation of our faith. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, the Shema. Let's join together with her on page 54 in our Siddurim, page 7 of our pamphlet.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבביך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ולתך בדרך ושומבך וקומך וקשרתם לאו על ידיך וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Extend a Yasher Koach to our Bat Mitzvah Julie as we continue privately the rest of the paragraphs of the Shema, pages 56 and 58.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בטיל תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תעתורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We turn now to page 60 in our prayer books for the song of freedom, the song of redemption, the song that we sang when we crossed the Red Sea and started walking towards Mount Sinai, the song that we sing today, not only to celebrate our redemption, but also to pray and to join hands in working together towards the redemption of all the people and all the nation on earth that are still awaiting redemption. The song of redemption, the song of freedom, page 60 in our prayer books or page 9 in our pamphlets, page 8.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. Who is like you? Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? When Moses and the children crossed the sea, we sang to you with songs of joy. Who is like you, Adonai? מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות We now move into Hashkivenu, our prayer where we ask God to shelter us with peace, kind of like a lullaby, shelter us and protect us before we go to bed. And as we move into Shabbat together, I invite all of us to think about, what does a shelter of peace look like to you? What does it feel like? Who are you with? Who's physically here or not physically here? And how can you feel that shelter of peace in this moment? When I lay down at night and I rest my head, oh God, watch over me. And when the morning comes, we thank the Holy One and pray for peace. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehavidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehavidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ushmor tzetzenu uvoenu lechaim ushalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehavidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehavidenu malkeinu lechaim. Lehavidenu malkeinu lechaim.
The sick and the sufferings and your hope, to the forgotten and the lonely send your love, to the confused and the distressed send your light, to the weary and the wronged send renewed strength, to the pursuers of justice send wisdom and faith, to the seekers of peace send unwavering resolve, to Jerusalem and its people send tranquility and joy, to the world tonight send the blessings of Shalom.
Ufros aleinu sukat shomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shomecha. Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom. Ufros aleinu sukat shomecha. Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Al Yerushalayim ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al Yerushalayim. Amen.
Rise as we proclaim the sanctity of Shabbat with the words from the Torah on the top of page 9 if you're following the pamphlets, or page 64 in the prayer books, V'shamru b'nei Israel.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
With the Chatzi Kaddish on page 66.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
Amen.
עמד יברח ירתי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם ואמריה, יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשא בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
For the private Amidah, we take 3 steps symbolically backwards and then 3 steps forward, exiting this corporal material world and entering into an intimate connection with the creator of us all, with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And we say, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tilatecha. We ask God to open up our lips so that our mouths may declare God's praise. Middle of page 9 in our pamphlets, top of 69 in our Sidurim.
Yalla lai lai lai, 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 yalla lai lai lai. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalla lai lai lai, 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 yalla lai lai lai.
private Amida in our prayer books between 69 and 76, or in our pamphlets, middle of page 9, the bottom of page 11, either in the Hebrew or the English, or any personal prayer of your heart. Still davening the Amidah. Please continue your private prayers. If you have concluded, you may be seated as we join in a prayer for peace, or Shalom, followed by a prayer for healing. And we will hear from our distinguished, honored friend and guest speaker, who I know does not appreciate the trappings of being showered with accolades, but they are well-deserved. One of the more inspiring leaders of the Jewish people around the world. We're honored to celebrate Shabbat with you tonight, Jonathan, and your mishpacha. First, a prayer for peace, melody by Debbie Friedman. As your site, Rabbi Guido pointed out, is coming up soon. And remember, be a blessing. Both of these prayers come from her compositions.
Ose shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu ve'yokos Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu ve'yokos Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ve'imeru amen.
Prayer for healing, the Mishiberach, on behalf of all those in our lives, in our families, in our community, and our congregation around the world who are in need of healing. Top of page 12 in our pamphlets, we find the Mishiberach.
Misheberach avotenu mekor Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
As Rabbi Berkun was mentioning a few minutes ago, we are honored today to have not one but two distinguished guests. I am very happy, very proud to introduce Jonathan, knowing firsthand of the work that he is doing in Krakow. I have his bio here, which I may read, but I just want to point out two things that inspire me of the work that Jonathan does. The first one has to do with the third time that I went on the March of the Living, and I had the blessing of having a very talented educator guide me. And she said, we are going to take a detour. This is not planned. Don't tell anyone. But we are going to see where Jewish life in Poland is. Because when you go to the March of the Living, it's all about remembering the dead. And sometimes people don't tell you that Poland is one of the countries in which Judaism is experiencing a growth that is not experiencing anywhere else in the world. We rabbis dream with grandchildren asking about their Jewish roots and their Jewish grandparents 2 generations after the Holocaust. And that's something that we don't see here in America. We don't see someone who comes and says, my grandfather was a Jew, they abandoned our faith, we want to reconnect. And the JCC in Krakow sees that. Not only the JCC, but mainly the JCC leads that work in reconnecting with Jews and promoting the growth of one of the very few Jewries that is experiencing growth in our days and age. And the other thing that I want to highlight of the work that Jonathan does that inspired both Rabbi Berkun and myself when we were trying to see how we can help the people who are leaving Ukraine as their homes are being bombed and crossing the border to Poland. Many of us, many of you, were asking the wrong question. And the wrong question was, can we help the Jews there? And the right question was, can you help people there the Jewish way? And that's what the JCC in Krakow does. It's not only about helping Jews, it's about helping the Jewish way. And that's why we found, together with Rabbi Berkun in Jonathan, the perfect partner for our mission to Krakow, but also to Warsaw and to Przemyśl, where we actually touched the border with Ukraine, brought together with us refugees, saw firsthand what they were doing. Happy was asking, how do you imagine a shelter of peace? And I can tell you, the most recent experience that I have of witnessing a shelter of peace is the JCC in Krakow as they welcome the Ukrainian refugees. There's a lot to say about Jonathan. He served in the IDF, he lived in Israel, he was born in New York City, he moved to Krakow in 2001, he opened the JCC, he's the founding CEO of the JCC in Krakow that was actually inaugurated by the Prince of Wales. Maybe he can tell us a little bit more about that. There's an anecdote there. Now it's the king, very soon. And he is very active in building bridges between Christian and Jews. And again, as I said, bringing back to life the Jewish community in Krakow. And perhaps the most important thing that I can say about him is that he's married to Kasia and he is a proud father to Ayala, who are here with us tonight. So Jonathan, the bima is yours.
Shabbat Shalom. That's been one of the most beautiful services I've ever heard, and I've heard you sing before, Happy, but not in this context, and you are absolutely unbelievable. It's a real honor to be here tonight in South Florida, not only in this beautiful synagogue with such an important history. I learned a little bit about it before. Rabbis Berkun and Cohen showed me around. But it's wonderful to be here in Florida in January. But, you know, I live near Auschwitz, so me saying how wonderful it is to be in Florida in January, you know, I live in Krakow near Auschwitz, so, you know, I don't know if that's a backhanded compliment, but it's meant as a real compliment. But it's no accident that I mentioned where I live near Auschwitz for 20 years, because Auschwitz symbolizes something for the Jewish people, and it symbolizes, of course, loss and tragedy, and Krakow in Poland has come to symbolize loss and tragedy for the Jewish people. And I learned a little about the history of this synagogue that was fascinating to me, that you told me, Rabbi, that at one point the largest percentage of Holocaust survivors in the world for a synagogue was this synagogue, if I explained that correctly. You had your membership had the most survivors per capita. So it's challenging in many ways living for 20 years near Auschwitz, a place so symbolic with death. But Krakow today and Poland, as Rabbi Guido said, is not only a place of death, it's a place of life. And I believe the youngest person here right now, certainly the noisiest, is from Krakow, was born in Krakow, is my daughter, Ayala, and I want to tell you how she got here. And I don't mean by plane, and I don't mean something far more graphic and inappropriate. What I mean is that her mother, my wife, grew up in Krakow as a Pole who didn't know that she was Jewish. And in her early 20s, I have to do this without giving away her age, I'll get in trouble. When she was in her early 20s, she found out that she had Jewish roots, and she came to a Hanukkah party at the JCC, and she met a certain eligible New York wise guy Jew, and they got along very well, and a few years later, you have Ayala with you tonight in services, mildly disrupting things. Hundreds, if not thousands, of stories like my wife's are going on today in Poland. Poland, a place that had 1,000 years of Jewish life, and then a short period of intense Jewish death, intense Jewish loss, is once again a place of life, a place of hope, a place of optimism. And that is in Krakow, in our city now, centered around the JCC. And I will tell you the story because it was mentioned, and I'll be in trouble if I don't, mention that now it's King Charles. So people finding out about their Jewish roots is one thing, as my wife did. How does that happen? Very quickly, 1,000 years of Jewish life. So many Jews murdered in the Holocaust. Poland was very Jewish before the war. And we know there were survivors. They came to this community. They came to New York. They went wherever they could. And usually for us, that's the end of Jewish life in Poland. We don't really think about Jewish life past 1945. Not all the survivors left, however. And some of them stayed in Poland, went underground, hid their names, hid their identities. And now in the last 30 years since communism ended, these young people are finding out they're Jewish, and our center is meant to bring them back into the fold. One of the frustrations of living near Auschwitz for such a long time, or even going to Auschwitz to visit, is that we can't do anything about the 6 million that were lost. We can commemorate, as we do on March of the Living and other programs. We can try to make sure it doesn't happen to us or anyone else again, but we can't save the 6 million, right? Some of us maybe watched the U.S. and the Holocaust, the Ken Burns documentary a few months ago. It's very frustrating. The world knew, but we can't do anything about that number. But there's another set of victims of the Holocaust that we have an actual opportunity to do something about, and that is young people, the children, the grandchildren, now the great-grandchildren of Holocaust survivors who were cut off from their own identity because of the Holocaust. They're not survivors in the first category. They're not victims of the Holocaust, really, but they're victims in a certain sense. If you're cut off from who you are, you're cut off from your people, then you're a victim. And that group of people we actually can do something about and are do something about. And that's why our JCC was founded by King Charles, who came to Krakow in 2002 and met with some Holocaust survivors. He was very moved by their history and wanted to help. The idea of a senior citizen center grew into something larger, and when he got involved in the project, financially, and they were able to open the center, our center, in 2008. And then Prince Charles and Camilla, now known as King Charles and the Queen, came, opened our center. We spent the day with us, and we've been open for 15 years trying to rebuild Jewish life. We have a preschool, which is the first Jewish preschool to open since the Holocaust in Krakow. BBYO, Hillel, taking care of Holocaust survivors, as was our original mission. We have over 50 Holocaust survivors still in Krakow that we're taking care of. And a place that has been defined by tragedy has refused to allow itself to be defined by tragedy. And what an opportunity we have, all of us, those of us on the ground in Krakow, but really all of us in the Jewish world. We thought that we could not do anything about the Jews lost in the Holocaust, but we can do something about the Jews lost to the Jewish world in the Holocaust, and that's what's happening today in Krakow. I have one big fan in the audience, which is really our this holy mission of trying to do something, and trying to do something about this feeling of helplessness that we can't go back and change the course of history, but a little bit these days, by helping to reach out to these lost Jews, these people just finding out about their Jewish identities, we can actually say, wait a minute, that number, whatever that number is, 6 million plus some, we can push back a little bit and go in the other direction. And our center is bright, colorful, optimistic, a real place of hope, a place where we are trying to show the world that the tragedy that's happened to us doesn't define us. I think the reason that the Jewish people is still around is because despite all the tragedy, we don't allow it to define us. We move past the tragedy. I think what defines you when something happens to you, when you as an individual or a people goes through something incredibly difficult like the Holocaust or other tragedies that has befallen our people, we have to not let ourselves be defined by what's done to us, but by how we respond. And the Jewish response to tragedy must always be to build, to rebuild, and to move forward. And that's what our little community in Krakow has started to symbolize, I think, for the world. And we have many visitors who pass through on March of the Living and throughout the year, and they see a community that's been written off by the world that doesn't allow itself to be defined by the tragedy that happened there. And that was the general story until February 23rd. On February 24th, Putin invaded Ukraine, and we made a few decisions, our community. One, we decided that we were going to do all we could to support Ukraine. Not what was convenient, not what we could afford. We were going to do all we could. And the second thing was that we were going to help Jews and non-Jews equally. Why did we make that decision? The number 6 million is a very difficult number to process. Why is that number so high? Why was Hitler so successful? Yes, because nobody, essentially yes, because nobody cared, because he met with indifference. Sure, Hitler was charismatic, Germans are ruthlessly efficient, it was wartime, you can get away with things that you can't in peacetime. But yes, nobody was too bothered about the fate of the Jews. And now, 80 years later, there's a different dictator in this part of the world, in our part of the world, who has genocidal plans for a different people. And this reborn, reconstituted Jewish community of survivors, their children, their grandchildren, can look at what's happening and say, that's not our problem, these people mostly aren't Jewish. Or they can say, we know what it means to be victims, and we know what it means to be forsaken by others. Therefore, we will do all we can to not let these people be forsaken and to help them. So our JCC, since day one, has become a full-scale humanitarian aid operation through the generosity of American Jews, through the generosity of your community. We've set up a free shop in our building where 500 people a day are fed and give groceries. We're housing 400 people a night. We have trauma. We're giving trauma counseling for women, victims of sexual violence, daycare, job training, language training. And up until this point, we've helped over 180,000 Ukrainian refugees. 180,000 Ukrainian refugees, 98% of whom are not Jewish. Thank you. I'll tell you one just quick story about our community, about our survivors. There's an international organization called Child Survivors, the Child Survivor Organization. They were children during the Holocaust. And we have a very active chapter in Krakow, and they meet once a month. On the last Saturday of every month, they meet at the JCC. And we have about 40 or so members, and if I'm in town, I'm always there. And in March, we were at our annual meeting, our monthly meeting, and the meeting takes place if you walk in our building, it's right across the hall from this food pantry. This food pantry where about 400 or 500 people a day. Again, women and children. I should point out that men between 18 and 60 are not allowed to leave Ukraine. So all this 180,000 people we've helped, vast majority, 90-something% are women and children. So a particularly vulnerable population. So we're at our monthly meeting of the child survivors of the Holocaust. These are all people early 80s to early 90s, I would say. And they're watching what's happening across the hall, which are women pushing strollers, or older women coming in, a few at a time, taking what they need, diapers, clothing, warm clothing in the winter, milk, whatever they possibly need, and walking back out. And one of the survivors, named Anna, who is a little girl in the Warsaw Ghetto, survived by being handed through the ghetto wall to strangers, non-Jews, who saved her. She stood up and she pointed across the hall and she said, that was us. They were us 80 years ago. And she said, I propose that we take our annual dues, which is $10 or something, and we should give it to help Ukraine. And one by one, the Holocaust survivors' hands go up, and they voted to give their annual dues to support the women and children that were across the hall from them. People ask me, what about Ukraine during the war? Aren't they anti-Semitic? Weren't they this? Weren't they that? And I answer them by telling them that story. The people who themselves suffered, the people themselves who went through this, understand that there are different ways to respond to tragedy. And one way is to become bitter and angry. And one way, and another way, and I hope a better way, is to say, we have a particular responsibility because of this knowledge, because of this feeling of what it was to suffer. We have a particular responsibility to try to alleviate the suffering of others. And I think that applies to the Jewish people, and I think in particular it applies to our Krakow Jewish community because of our history and because of where we are and because of what our community has gone through. Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher Koach, Shabbat Shalom, and thank you so much for making the journey. Glad we could reunite friends from Poland, and also to be inspired by the work that you're doing and to have personally witnessed it ourselves. I want to acknowledge the Light family. Louis is here. He was with us on this journey to Poland on the border of Ukraine, and grateful to their family support of this evening, and also to others who have made tonight possible together with Happy as well, enabling us to be so inspired. We're going to have Shabbat dinner after services for those who reserved and registered, and for those who did not, I am confident that we have room as well, but just be patient. We are going to say all of our blessings in the room where we have dinner together. So when you go into that room, we invite you to find a seat, make room. If you see somebody who's looking for a place, invite them to join you. We're going to sing all of our blessings in that room, and then we will have Shabbat dinner and hopefully hear some more, maybe have some Q&A with Jonathan. And then if people are still inspired, who knows, maybe a little more singing with Happy. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. But now we want to welcome all of the children who are here in our synagogue under the age of 18, as I like to say. You're still a child. We're going to bless them. So those who are screaming out in the hallway, it's time for them to come up to the Torah and get a blessing. Those who are here in the fourth row, please come up and get a blessing. And Jonathan, it would be our honor to bless your daughter together with your wife. If you all want to come up to the Torah, the first one up is going to open up the ark. Happy's going to lead us in an original composition of the priestly blessing, Birkat Kohanim. Please rise, ladies and gentlemen, as the Torah scrolls are exposed and celebrated. Go ahead, pull on the gold cords, guys. Good job. Come all the way up to the Torah. Hey, nice gold chain or silver.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.
May God bless you and protect you. May God show you favor and be gracious to you. May God show you kindness and bless you. The Shabbat of Shalom, life of Shalom, world of Shalom. As we all say together, Amen. You can give the Torah scrolls a kiss, boys and girls. Go ahead.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך shalom.
As the children continue to give the Torah scrolls a kiss and return to their places, we remain standing for Aleinu in our prayer books, page 12. In our pamphlets, page 12, and our Sidurim, page 118.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו וגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו עינות, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים,
בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד.
הכתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Those of us in mourning and those observing Yortzeit remain standing for the mourner's Kaddish. The rest of us may be seated. This past week, we mourned the passing of Stephen Newman, Holocaust survivor in our congregation. He was almost 102. Some of you may remember him. There's a photograph of him on the inside cover of the Shabbat program. May his memory be a blessing. He would always greet everyone on Shabbat morning and say, "Stay healthy," in a very thick Eastern European accent, and may he rest in peace. I know we will always remember him. We are also joined on this Shabbat by Fran and Howard Shapiro, whose beloved father, Charles Bedsoe, passed away a little over a week ago, right before Shabbat. He was a member of the Bilski Brigade, a Holocaust survivor, a partisan fighter as well. So as we continue to remember those who have passed, I know that their legacy will live on in our hearts, especially on such a meaningful Shabbat such as this, where we are reflecting and remembering, but also recognizing that there is so much positive work that can happen in Poland, both through the inspiration, the musical inspiration of Happy, and the institutional inspiration and leadership of Jonathan. We are truly blessed on this Shabbat. This coming week, we observe the following Yortzeits with love. We remember Helen Berenson, Leon Cohn, Marie Damast, Richard Dobell, Gladys Farbish, Morris Glazer, Andrew Harrop, Brian Israel, Dr. Brian Israel, Bruce Kay, Bernard Kessler, Ann King, Cora Modell, Joseph Nashman, Sophia Norris, Helen Rappaport, Isaac Ryboy, Marcelo Moises Sal, Lydia Salvadori, Esther Schwartz, Siegfried Servos, Sarah Sharko, Alex Stone, Henrietta Sultan, Rose Walgus, and Jean Weiner. Mourner's Kaddish can be found page 120 and in our pamphlets on page 13. Forgive me, not 120, 124. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah bi'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'me'omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shmei d'kudashah b'richu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. One more song. You may be seated before we conclude, as we began with Hinei Matov. Just while we have everyone's attention, and the microphone and the guitar is all here with Happy, I'm wondering, curveball, can you please lead us in a Yom Huledet Sameach for our Bat Mitzvah, Julia? Of course, Mazel Tov to Julia. We look forward to celebrating with you tomorrow, but today, it's still the 13th, it is your birthday, so let's all join together in wishing our Bat Mitzvah a Yom Huledet Sameach.
Yom
Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach to Julia. Yom Huledet Sameach. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Once again, a Yasher Koach to Happy, Yasher Koach to Jonathan. Please join us in the smaller social hall. Please just go have a seat. We're going to sing our blessings together. Rabbi Guido suggests that we rise.
We read the Exodus tomorrow, but for now we encourage you to stay here as we conclude the service, just as we began it, singing together Hine Matov Umanayim. The food is not served yet, so No need to run. Let's stay here and sing together. Hine ma tov u'manayim.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שברחים גם יחד. 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 הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שברחים גם יחד.
Special todah to Michael and Margie Blasberg for helping to sponsor our special visit by Happy Hoffman Yasher Koach. Shabbat Shalom. Come be with us next week. Happy won't be here, but I think we'll have her back again. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please wish one another a Shabbat Shalom.
Wait for the next